cover. First I'm going to talk to you about what I'm not going to do right now that I'm going to do later. And about 3 o'clock today, we're going to have the jig set up over in the arena with the Wolfpack. And I'm going to give a demonstration, and we probably can do it again tomorrow at 3 o'clock so you can actually see it. There's so much stuff to cover here. It's cold outside. We don't really have a good log to get to out there. They're all frozen in a pile. So I'm not going to show you this here tonight. I'm going to show you how to set it up, tell you how it can be used in different ways that you don't think about. Most of you, this here is the Alaskan mill, by the way. This chainsaw with a 3-foot Alaskan mill. This here is, I don't know if you call it 16, 18, or 20-inch Alaskan mill. I'm going to show you how you hook this up to a saw. It works just as good as this, but on a smaller tree. If it's maybe 12 or 14 inches, you know, it could be 6, 8, 14. You don't want to use this great big thing. You can use this smaller Alaskan mill. So I have this one, the 3-foot, and one of the 5-foots. I made this, I call these things for a better name, I call it a hurdle. It resembles a hurdle that you would be, you know, in a racetrack or that. What this allows you to do is take a log that's not perfect like we have down at the yard where we're working on is cylindrical logs. The Alaskan mill, they came up with a way of making your first cut by taking 2x4s or this special metal device that they put on a perfect log to get a level plane, make your first cut, then the Alaskan mill just follows. You take that slab off and it lays on the wood and goes through, take that slab off and do the next one. But in Tennessee where I'm at, I cut a lot of cedar trees. The branches and the shape of the tree or something you're not going to put a 2x4 on. So I had to figure out a way, how am I going to go ahead and cut that first piece off the tree? And then after I cut that first piece off, I stood it up and I said, gosh, attach that to the wall, it makes a hat rack. So a piece of waste wood turned into a valuable thing that I could sell for $100, $200, finish it all up, and somebody puts it in as a decorative piece in their house. You can put two of them together with a mirror in between, so you teach people other things, and you're making more money, you know, off waste products. So anyhow, this thing here is actually a second generation. When I first did this, I made 1-inch tubing with about 1.5 inch angle iron welded down there, and I drilled a hole in there, welded a nut on, and made this T-thing so I could set it. Well, I'd have the saw set on there, and I'd be lifting this thing up and with a level across the bars, trying to get it level, and it was a pain. So then I came up with this method of this little device, and everybody can't see this. This little device coming out here gave me a chance to adjust it. I would set these pins at relatively close height, and then the one that was higher or lower, I would adjust these like that. Well, that worked pretty good, because these were 3 inches apart, and this had a 4-inch range, so that worked pretty good, but it takes a long time to change that, especially if you're 3 inches away. And so what I came up with is, I just bought them today. I've been doing this for a couple of years, but now all you do is you do this. Works pretty good. Another thing is these pins that I use to go up and down, they get lost. And you put them down someplace you can't find them. And then today, I even though I own things like this, I never thought of it, but Brad Bemis here came up and told me about these things. Why don't you use that? So when I'm transporting this thing and I have to take those pins out and I'm going to lose them, I get to use this and it stays in the device. It's just a lot easier. And this one here, Brad, is the one that came off the back of my pickup truck. I've got 4 of them on the back there on my tailgate that I use them all the time, and I never thought to do it here. So you learn something every day. I'm going to go ahead and show you how this is all cooking right now, how we do it real quick. way, you know how we all come here and we forget something at home? There's always something. Well, I had everything down, this great big, first time I ever did it was a list of everything that I would need. And part of it was on Alaska milk. But I didn't write down to bring the rails. So I had to go out and spend $100 for these 2 rails. And then there's this little mill right here that I'll show you in a minute. It takes a special piece of aluminum that I forgot, so I had to get that so I can show you that thing. You live and learn. All right, the thing is, you've got your log, and you decide where you want to make your cut on your log. You mark the log here, you go to the other end, and decide where you want that thing to end up over there. And you take this mill, and let's see, we're going to go this direction here. Come on here, Brad. Pull that out. Slide it back. You're going to know the distance from here down to the bar. And so you need to lower it down so the bar is right easy with where you made your mark. So you always start off from here with your level. And the log doesn't have to be level on the ground. And it's really better if the part that you start on is actually higher, because then gravity is working with you. It'll slide down these rails. You can use whatever you want. Some people use a ladder. But a lot of times a ladder, the rungs are going to get in the way of branches that are coming up or something. But generally a ladder should work for you, okay? These are your barn door slides. You can buy them at, I bought these down here at the hardware store. You can get them at big Lowe's place. They come in 8, 10, 12, 14, 16-foot lengths. These are 10-footers. So I can see here that this thing is way high. This thing has to, I'll lower this end down. It's all the way down. It's too far down. What I do is I move the pin, set that thing down, and now it's too low. So I go laboriously raise this thing up to its level. Okay? And sometimes I'll raise this up and I'll lower that up. Just say we got this level. Then I go over here and I measure the distance from the top of this. I'll put the level on there and I'll measure from here down to the mark I have. And that'll give me an idea how far I have to lower that. And then this one here, which is obviously out of level now. This is so much better. I'll lower that thing down to this level, and so if the right distance is down to there, that's where the saw is going to come out, and then you'll start over here. So that determines where your first cut is going to be. After that, then you can go ahead and take all this down, put it on the log, and then to make the rest of the cuts. You adjust this, which I always use a speed wrench. You take off these two ends, and there's marks on the side here that tell you the depth, and you establish the depth that you want to make the cut your cuts. I'm going to be doing something over at the fairgrounds that is unique. I haven't done it before, but the idea just came up today. Tommy Craig asked me to cut a 1-inch slab so he could do the swords. All right? What we're going to do over there is we're going to make the first cut down, get that slab off, take the saw, slide it back, and leave it right where it started. Then we're going to come down here and we're going to take this end and we're going to lower it down 2 inches. We're going to make our cut, and then I'm going to have the wedge. That'll, anyhow. it'll be a tapered thing. So it's going to be just perfect for the sword. You just need to cut out the sides and do very well sanding. And he's got a nice tapered sword. I was raised in Massachusetts, so I used to pop my car and it's cut outside and all that kind of stuff. I do a sword instead of a sword. So basically, that's what that's going to do for that. The question?
What's the easiest way to sharpen your chain with the mill still attached?
It's real easy to do one side and really hard as hell to do the other side. Because your fingers are hidden, you just go slower and wear gloves. Or else take it off. Really, the time it takes to just, you take a couple of 2 screws, you unloosen the ends down there, you pull the thing out, set it in a vise. If you want to do it real easy.
Do you use a ripping chain on?
Good question. This is a chain you guys can look at. This came off the 5-foot Alaskan mill, and you will see, you buy them at Bailey's, okay? And it has 2 special cutters. I didn't bother to clean it for you. You'll look that there's a cutter, then there's a clean out, and for one side, a clean out for the other, and then a cutter. And then a cutter, you have these things that it works much better. You just tell them what size, what saw you have, what bar, and order from them. I buy it. You can buy it by the roll and make your own too. But anybody.
And that's because I've never seen a ripping chain. And
I'll tell you what. Anybody that wants it, it'll be here. You can look at it, and I'll have it.
And this is what spots as a ripping chain.
Yes. There's one on this saw also. Question?
Could you use a Dremel?
Pardon?
Could you use a Dremel to sharpen it with the mill still attached?
Sure. I don't like using Dremels myself. The cutter wears out, so you're not always getting the same diameter. With a file, I feel you're getting the same diameter, and a Dremel, those things, that stone's going to wear out.
Takes practice.
And so my personal choice. There's another thing with this, that if you're going to make a table, coffee table or something like that, say you have a log, or you want to make a log that's big diameter log, and you want to make it perfectly level. There's a way that you can use this to do that, and a way to cut a stump that has roots in it. You want the roots to support a glass tabletop. All right? What I do is, it's a little bit of extra work. You've got to have, say, the root system down. And you put wedges under it, whatever it is, to make sure that the trunk is the way you want it. Then you set the saw over it, and you go across and make a cut. Then you turn the thing right side up. Okay? And there's 2 ways of making your second cut. If you're on uneven ground, what you do is you just come out and you measure from here up to this point on these 4 points. Make sure all 4 of your points are the same height, and that'll take care of the slope in the ground. But if you want to be real exact, I got another invention here. Table. These are leveling jacks for scaffolding. I mean, you can be out on rough terrain in the dirt, and you can put a level across here and raise this up to this level. Then you put your other one over, you go across to make that level, and so you can get all 4 points level. Then what I do is put a piece of plywood or something across there, and they're far enough apart that then you can take that log and turn it right side up. And so then you've got a level base, then you set the Alaskan mill over it, you set the depth that you want, and then you cut it, and you've got sort of like a spool of thread. It's level on the top and the bottom. You can see I've used this. Yeah. I guess I've used it for some other things too. Okay, this is not necessarily the saw that I would use this for, but this Alaska mill, you take the saw and you clamp it in like that. There's no bracer on the other end like you have over here. The longer the bar is, the more it's going to tend to sag, and especially like you heard earlier about sharpening your chain. I recommend, you have a dedicated bar and that ripping chain and maintain it perfect. Otherwise, it's going to want to dig down or climb up. It's going to change on it. So, and you don't have that same issue with this. It's a shorter bar, and it definitely should be longer than this one. But basically, this thing works the same. It's going out in the woods and you want to cut some slabs or make one beam out of a log. Why use that great big heavy thing when you can use this? You'd still have to use this right here. Another thing with this here, you're able to cut slabs as long as the tree is. I cut some 20 foot 6 inches long. You could cut a 60-foot slab if you had a 60-foot tree. But it requires 2 more of these hurdles. Okay? You start at one end of the tree, you work your way all the way down to here. Then you take another hurdle and you come up behind the saw and make it touch the bottom of this. Then you take 2 more rails like this and you go out there and you raise them and you can sight down there and get the level, okay? Once you've done that, then you take this one out, you continue with the saw, and I mean you can just go, yeah.
What's the distance before your span starts to bow with your saw, or doesn't it?
It doesn't bow that much. It'll only bow if you guys don't have your chain sharpened properly, and it tends to want to pull you down. Then it might go. And that all depends on the strength. These things are really strong, okay? You start going up to the 16 foot, the longer you go, the more tendency it might have to bow. Basically, that thing's locked into that log.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a bad chain that's going to make that thing go.
But what do you have to wedge your slab the way? You put shims in for your slab so it doesn't...
Yeah. I forgot to bring them in, but I make wooden wedges.
Okay.
As soon as you get down here, just a little way you put a wedge. I got real tapered wedges.
Yeah.
The wedge goes in there. Before you take it off the end of the log, you get down near the end, you put a wedge, and sometimes if I've got a helper, I've got him putting, depends on how heavy.
Yeah.
A couple years back, several years, I cut a 7-inch thick red oak slab, 30-something, oh, maybe 40-something inches wide.
Okay.
Here, out on the grounds with Robin Wazowski and Randy Bonney and Danny Patterson, and we cut that, and we had the wedges at the one end, then we put wedges in the middle because we don't want that to be causing drag on the saw. And when you get near the end, then you better put 2 of them in so the saw comes out, because as soon as you cut through that thing, the thing drops down on it and binds your saw.
Yeah.
So, and then what it does, when it does that, it makes a nasty cut that you don't want. So you got to have the wedges in the end. Okay, now when you're using this thing, I've got 2 of these. I took one of these off my 5 foot and put it in there so I didn't have to adjust it each time. If I had a narrow log, I would be pulling here. If I got a wider one, you want to be pulling towards the center of the thing. And you better be wearing a dust mask because you're going to get a lot of this stuff. I do a lot of cedar. I use one of those dusty gone. It's rewashable ones, you know. It's going to be a very fine dust. I mean, use whatever you do, whatever you like, but make sure you're wearing it. You're going to get it all over you. The prescribed way is you get over here and you pull it. But I get over here on this side here, a lot of times when I push it, especially at the end. You can do it both ways, and you can, even though this doesn't have a handle on the end, my 5 foot is a bar that you can put a power head at both ends. or you got a handheld thing down there that somebody can use. That 20-foot tree that I cut in slabs, I did all by myself. I didn't have anybody out in the end. It just took a lot longer to cut something that was almost 30 inches wide. But you can have somebody come down here and help with this, and just so that you got somebody that can actually hear the saw. You got to listen to it, and if it's crying to you, you got to be gentle with it and not force it any harder. You're going to get an optimum speed for which you're going through there, where it's going to cut. Make sure your chain is sharp.
How do the 2 power heads work?
Pardon?
How do the 2 power heads work?
It works awesome. Somebody else told me somebody else had one, told me that they had. I've never had a need to do that.
I mean, like, you have somebody else on the end. I mean, like, how do you get?
Well, you gotta be controlling the nozzle. Yeah, you can't just. There is not like a quick spot on a chainsaw. Thank goodness somebody would use it and really, cut themselves that bad. So you got to have somebody over there. And if it's big enough that you need a second power head, then it's a 2-person job. That thing's a real animal. That big, the big
I
one.
was thinking more like, syncing the throttle, to different people.
Yeah. Well, that's it. You ever try to carry a piece of furniture with somebody that has no sense of balance?
Yeah.
You're lifting this way and they're lifting that way, and so it's all of a sudden becomes heavier because you're fighting each other. Like this right here, once you cut your slab, and you maybe want a straight cut on the back, this is a wood, I guess they call it wood mill. Mini mill is what they call it. So in Bailey's. This thing here runs on a track. When you buy it, it comes with several of these things. They got little holes in there, so you screw it down to a 2x8 or a 2x10, 2x12, right near the edge, and this thing follows this in the track and goes along. Your chainsaw fits down in the end like this. I'll take it up this way with slide. Now I've used it to take and I've used this mill with it too. Okay. Not actually these rails. I used the hurdles, and I spanned a 2x12 with that thing on it, and used it to. I had a log that I wanted to cut a V out of the back. Okay. So I put the log down, and I cut down into the center of the log straight. Then I rotated that log so that it would be 90 degrees down there to the vertical, and then I do the second one, and this V chunk came out. So it was a structural thing that had to go in a house and be perfect. So that's what I used it for. This thing here would then ride like that. You pull it one thing. I found that it actually works really good a lot of times on this to use the top side of the bar. Somebody said we don't ever use saws the way they're supposed to. You're not supposed to come up and cut here, but I do as much cutting on the top of the bar as I can rather than the bottom, because it shoots everything away from it. And it shoots all that sawdust down rather than at it. Okay? I don't use this mill here backwards. Probably should try it, turn it backwards. That might be my next thing that I preach, is going backwards with it. The only thing is, actually this one, it's pulling that thing at you, and it's probably better to have that sawdust coming at you than going the other way. But I'll stick on the subject matter. Okay, we got the mini mill that does the straight cut afterwards, but then you can always also use it to do, like I said, D cuts in the log. We covered that, how you can use it for leveling a log and getting into the height that you want. And there's 14 inches of depth here, so you can have branches sticking up pretty high. As long as this thing here clears the top of the branch, then that thing is going to be going over. I try to take a smaller cut on the first cut now, so I don't have to stop to readjust this. I do a lot of fireplace mantles where I maybe want a minimum 4 inches to 6 inches. So whatever I'm going to cut that thing afterwards, that's what I set this distance as. as an arbitrary distance to make that first cut. Then when I go back and put it on the log, I don't have to readjust it. Okay. This here is a laser level. All right. Now, in the early morning or evening, you take something like this. It's an amazing tool to. Can we dim the lights in here? I want to show something. Or just turn the lights out, please, for a minute. Somebody know where the light? Somebody know where the light switch is? Turn out the lights for a few minutes. I had a stump where the people did not want me to cut anything off the top. They wanted to make a glass. Thank you. You can see the marker a lot better now. And they wanted this thing, they wanted to put glass in there. So really a regular cedar stump, I needed to cut into the stump so that you could slide the glass into there, yet not cutting all the way. They took two pieces and put them in from both sides, and they just didn't want to go all the way through the stump. So I took the saw, and you can see the, you people see this light on there?
Oh, yeah.
Well, if you take it and get it so the thing is just, you got to be just right. It was down a lot lower, which is a lot easier to work in at, but if you turn it just right, you paint the whole bar red. You can tell whether you're with a lot of concentration.
Yeah.
Whether you're level on both planes, you're level up and down like this, and you're level like that. When you get it, I had a much bigger bar. I had a much wider bar and everything. But you get the concept of it. You can do a horizontal thing. You can take this thing, and if you need to make a vertical cut, you can do that too.
How do you see the line in the stump though?
What's that?
How do you see the line in the stump though while you're cutting?
Well, what you want to do is, it's always going to be on the top of your saw. You'll see it over there where you get started. You get the bar in there. You get started for one thing. Then, if something's holding it out there, so this balancing act that you have is not so difficult. And so you're coming across, and it tells you whether you're dipping this way or whether it's uneven. So it's just something. But you can do a vertical line. You can do whatever you want. But you can use a laser light. Where how the heck are you going to measure that with a level of that to get the perfect line all the way around there? Just another tool that I try to use for a different purpose. Pardon? Yeah, new toy. All right, now, before I forget it, many of you have bought the debarking tools. I got about 7 with me that I need to grind down and make up. They go for $10 a piece. These are, most people will tell you they're incredible debarking tools. And the new ones are actually thicker than the ones that I used to have. All right?
You sell those?
Yeah, $10 a piece. I would just tell you where to go get them, and you, okay, I will. You go down to Pigeon Forge or Gatlinburg, Tennessee, and you can buy them there. Even though it's a tool that's made by Grip, which you'll find Grip tools at Harbor Freight Net. I've never seen these things anyplace else than that, or don't know where you can get it on the internet to buy them. But you know, just
save me one. I'm
people,
gonna come to
people who have asked for them, you know, I go ahead and bring them because somebody always wants them. I don't make hardly anything after I do all the. I got to take them basically, and I got to grind the back off to get all that paint off, so it'll flow through there. And then I sharpen the front, rounding the edges on it so that it cuts. Because when you come over, and I'll give you guys a lesson on debarking. It's all about finesse, not about brute force. And if you get right, even these logs over here that have got frozen logs, you get it down so you're cutting like askew, get under the cambium layer, and then go, and it's just, it's painless to do that. So I can show you how. Okay, now my next, we got plenty of time. My next tool is, I went to Japan and I wanted to do something different. And I came up with an idea that the chairs that we all make that have a straight back and then a straight bottom, the T-shaped bottom that goes in the hole, they look nice, they're convenient, but they're as uncomfortable as hell. You know, I never liked that. Well, I wanted to make a chair that had a curvature to the back, so it was more comfortable. And the first thing I did is I used an 066 with a 36-inch bar. I made my first cut, and then I tried the impossible of making a perfectly parallel cut through that. I did some that were close, okay? But if you don't have that bar perfectly level, you're not going to be able to do it. And if you're ever doing any cuts similar to that, make sure if you got a long bar, don't use any more bar than you have to. The further the saw is back here, the more you can see of this blade here, the more you can cut it up or down. If you're all the way into the tree, it's pretty hard to tell what level it is. I've tried things like putting those magnets that you have, not magnets, but those levels for campers where they go one way and the other way, and then the vibration, it doesn't stay there, so it doesn't work. That didn't work good. So anyhow, I came up with basically this idea here of making a cut the way I want it, and then I attach this thing, and this is just tubing with a 5/16 bolt through it that establishes the depth that you want. And you can use different bolts and spacers here to make whatever depth you want, okay? But in learning this, I used one bar, and most of the bars have a curvature to the top. And I discovered it doesn't cut the same at the ends as it does in the middle. And so then I went ahead and this bar here, there's a shop in Portland, Oregon that does bars. Probably easy to find out who it is. I paid him to take a Windsor bar. I told him the saw that I was going to use, a 346 XP, because I was going to Japan and I knew what saw I'd be using, so I wanted to get a bar that was going to fit on that. And I knew that the logs were going to be 15 inches diameter, 49 inches height. So I had to make sure that I could fit, that this would fit over the log. So he went ahead and made a parallel bar for me. And what I did is I took aluminum stock and made a guide. And what it is, you don't make it the thickness of the bar itself here. It's got to be as thick as the bar with the chain, so that you're going to follow the same thing, okay? And I went ahead and made myself a second one when I made that in case something happened. But it's just as thick as the chain, and so you can follow it, go down through the log. So you made your first cut, then you started, and I'm going to do one of these outside. I got a log out there that I'm going to go ahead and go after 12. I mean, if people want to leave, they can leave, but
I think that's Bill Davenport.
What's that?
Bill Davenport you're talking
that's
about.
what it was. Yeah, I don't try to make money on these things. You know, anything I've got here, you're welcome to photograph it in detail, take advantage of the ideas and make them. I don't want to merchandise or manufacture. I just want to carve and share my. I'm thrifty. I want to get something done without spending a lot of money and be able to do it in any environment. Okay. So, we're talking about wedges when we're cutting a slab. When you start doing this thing, it's a good idea to put a wedge in both holes. Once you get down a little ways, and I go down straight first, a little ways before I start doing the trim, okay? And you put the wedges in, then that helps you going down. And there again, the same thing with this. You got to be level. You start going like this and you start turning, it isn't going to work right. And you're going to listen to your saw, and you're going to feel. You're going to be going faster. You've got to judge that. I kind of came up with an idea, and I haven't done it yet, but I was going to have a little device attached here that goes up and over with a pendulum that hangs down, so that you can visually see the fact that it's in line. I mean, a lot of times we need things to help us that you can't see it, because that is so critical that you're right there. But tell you how good these things were. The very first two chairs that I made, Dayton and Michelle took them to Mississippi, and they're still using them. So the thing is, the longer you could do it, the better. When I went to Japan, I had a size restriction, but I'm probably going to go ahead and have one made for a bigger saw. The more power you got, the better. Of course, the more power, the bigger the bar, the less you've got a limit as to how tight of a turn you can make. But I think that those chairs are a neat idea. I've got a question over there. Question.
What you got there when you're running down the log, make your initial cut, and if you use that, if you get too far into the log and that bar hits the outside log, how does it hold up as far as jamming or causing a problem? As long as you stay off a piece of wood, you got things on it doesn't work. Well, that's your depth. That's the thickest stuff on your left, right?
Yeah.
How does it work? If you get a little bit off one way or the other, how does that bar interfere with
Oh, it interferes a lot. It gets wedged when you're screaming at it. So you got to work it and get it back up.
You don't have to do it.
Yeah, you find out. When you screw up, you know it right when you did it. You find out. It's something that takes finesse and practice to do it. Okay. Okay. Now, when Bob King was talking about the top of your bar, you go ahead and you put it on the sander like that and going lengthwise with the thing. You want to eliminate the friction. Well, this thing here, I polished this along the edge. I rounded the ends, polished it, made this thing smooth. You can spray it with like silicone. So you're reducing the friction on this thing. Because this thing doesn't want to do this. You don't have to force it. I mean, anytime you're taking a saw and you're trying to make these turns, a lot of times when you wait on it, and the slower you go, the more the breaks off on the side, it allows you to do that. So you don't want to be too fast. But I'm always thinking efficiency and time. Time is money. I'm doing this $1 a minute. So how many minutes is it going to take me to do this? And okay, one of the things, you start off at the middle of the log. You take the middle and you make your first cut. Then you go to the left, then you go on the other side of the log, and you go across. And you don't go all the way down to the bottom. You leave it a few inches from the bottom. Well, what I do then is when I get down there, I pull the thing back up, and I make sure there's a spacing block underneath. And then I pull a Dennis Beach, and I go up in Japan. I did anyways. I get down there, and I went down and did the last cut, swapped it over, I followed Dennis Beach for a few minutes in Japan. But the Japanese were all around looking at it, taking pictures of what in the world is he doing? Because here's this thing with all these curves like that, and then down. And I did 2 chairs out of that log, and I had 2 hours to do it, and I carved an owl, a relief owl in both of them. So it gave me time to go ahead and cut those things, and then do the relief carving in the back in 2 hours. So you can do it and make money on these things. Any questions? We're actually running good time.
Maybe you might want to cover the importance of having your chainsaw gassed up before you start milling so it doesn't die when it's hot as...
Oh yeah. Well, when I start, I always, every time I stop, I refill. I don't wait for it to go empty. I refill it, and I have, in my shop, I've got air in every place. I blow out the filter every single time. Anytime I put fuel in any of my saws, I blow out the filter, blow off the dirt.
I get the importance so the saw is still idling to cool off. 'Cause I know guys who've been milling hard, tank goes empty, power head's dead because it needs to cool down. So you need to let it idle a little bit because you're really running the saw hard when you're milling. And if it runs out of gas,
I don't always run at full throttle either, you know, and anytime you're running something, never stay at 1 RPM, change it some, you know, let it, you know, shoot, have a difference in there, but I never let it run out. Always fill it up right away. Good point. Any other questions?
I'm still confused about that little one. How do you use it and what do you use it on?
This?
Yeah.
This is called a mini mill. You put it on a flat surface, you cut your slab and it's a regular shape. You want a straight edge on there. So you put it on there with that saw and you go down and you got a straight edge. Then you go over to the other side, make it straight edge.
You're using that the mini mill as an edger.
Yeah.
You use like to make dimensional lumber.
Yeah, if you want to make dimensional lumber. Okay, there was a thing I explained to somebody, just a thought of what you could do. Say you've got a tree, a long tree, and you want to make a flagpole, a unique one. What I'm going to do with Tommy's, that board I'm going to cut for Tommy to make the sword. Well, you can take your tree and you can set the thing where you start out here and you go down to maybe 4 inches at this end. You turn the log over, you do the same thing. Then you turn it over again, and you get 4 sides. You can turn it all the way, you can make it 8 sides. You can have a tapered tree. You can take a tree and taper it using this thing, and you set that guide.
So do you use that new one a lot on your mantles?
I do it on the back of my
the back
mantles.
of the one.
My mantles are generally it's cedar like this. It's rough, old, dead cedar. I take the oldest, rotten, dead cedars from the forest, and I use a tool that I'll show you. Anybody that wants to come by and look at it. I wasn't doing all kinds of tools, but I use a tool called an Osborne brush. It's used on a variable speed die grinder or variable speed sander polisher. It's a 10 amp grinder. It's like a 7-inch disc that has a sander, it has a plucking wheel, all this stuff. So I just use it and I put this screw-on Osborne brush. It comes in 2 different grits. And that's what I use to go over, and I take all the oxidation and bad wood off it, and I turn an old dead $25 log into a $1,400 mantle. Because it's something Mother Nature created that we can't duplicate with a chainsaw. And it doesn't, I mean, the detail that it leaves in the wood is incredible, and people just go gaga on this thing. So I made the first cut, and then I take that mini mill and I put on there, and then go over and cut the back of it. So it gives me a back cut on the mantle. And that's what I mostly use that mini mill for. So anytime you need to do a straight cut. More questions? Go ahead and take a few minutes and I'll go outside. I gotta put this thing up to the saw. If you want to see the third log, I'll show you how that's on.
Okay, guys, I'm going to get those close-ups you asked for. These adjustment screws. Well, the thing I was talking about.
Bring it back to me over there.
Okay.
There you got it.
All right, thanks, Dave.
And thank you for your information.
Dave, I'd like one.
See,
I don't have one here.
All right, I'll catch up with you down there.
this
We'll give you the demonstration of
mini mill
This is the
that he was talking about.
mini mill. There's the name on it. Buy it at I buy most of these things at Bailey's. So the mill fits in like that, and then it rides on the track. That's similar to this. I didn't tell people that I bought a piece of aluminum that was 6 or 8 inches wide, 1/4 inch thick, that I screwed these things down.